Jay and Silent Bob's video stash. What is this exactly? So this is not, my other segments for Kevin Smith stuff have been connected to various movies. And, the Mallrats special, the Clerks TV pilot, things of that nature. This wasn't tied to a movie. It was like a year, I think it was 98 after Chasing Amy. But basically what it was is MTV asked basically Jay and Silent Bob to make little kind of interstitial short kind of MTV station ID things for them, and they made quite a few of them, but this was kind of the special to introduce that these would currently be airing on MTV. Now, this was not the MTV of the late 90s with TRL and stuff like that. This was about a year before, and MTV at that time was really sort of lost. Like, there wasn't, Puffy was sort of taking over MTV. You're getting sort of more hip hop, but they weren't really sure. Boy bands hadn't really hit yet, at least on MTV. They were on the radio and things, but they weren't. I watched a lot of MTV, and trust me, they weren't. They would later, a lot. But this special was to introduce those little shorts, and it has Jay and Silent Bob in Jay and Silent Bob's Secret Stash talking about basically MTV stuff, playing videos, things like that. I taped this at the time. I've since lost that tape in some sort of nonsense. But at the same time, you can't actually find this. It's not on YouTube. Didn't search on Dailymotion actually, but I couldn't find it when I searched anywhere except on the View Askew website, where you could download real player clips. So I had to actually get VLC player to download them and put them in a certain order to remember that. And I actually remember when people, my friends who didn't have MTV would try to watch it that way and actually have me come over to show my recording of it from MTV. The special itself is kind of not really as interesting as you'd think it would be. They sort of just play random videos and sort of talk over them. But Jay and Silent Bob are not media trained clearly yet. Kevin Smith is noticeably not the person you see at Comic-Con interviewing people, having all this presence. He's like, hey, yeah, I like MTV. I like this Alanis Morissette video because it's just her face and it like says something about being real and things like that. And I'm just like, it's weird because I'd seen this a bunch of times because like anyone I knew like Kevin Smith wanted to see the special, and to me that was Kevin Smith. But watching it now, I'm like, who the fuck is that guy? Like, what? It was just, that part's very strange. I recommend it if you like that era, because it is definitely a throwback. The segments themselves, a lot of them aren't really that funny, to be honest with you, but some of them that were there's one where they're playing like Beautiful People, and Jay comes out and goes, the beautiful people, and like does this dumb thing and has like contacts in his eyes, and he like messes up and one hits him in the brain and stuff. That part's really funny. There's also one that I'm not sure, I will say, if this started this marathon that would happen on MTV. They were told there was going to be a marathon, or the spot itself inspired the marathon. I don't know the history or the origins of that, but they do one like, I liked MTV when it had twisted puppets and sick ass cartoons basically. And then later, like almost a year later, they did do that marathon and played that Jay and Silent Bob little segment quite a few times. So I don't know if they brought on like a really cool animation weekend of MTV in the late 90s, but they at least like made that short and were a part of that, which I think is pretty cool. Additionally, they did one that was like I Want My MTV thing, where like Matt Damon's actually in it, because if you didn't know, Kevin Smith hooked up Harvey Weinstein with Matt Damon and Ben Affleck and got Good Will Hunting. He's an executive producer on Good Will Hunting with Scott Mosier, I believe. And so in it, like they're in a department store and Matt Damon shows up and he's like, I'm here for a cable connection. You see Jay and Silent Bob. They're like, I want my MTV, Nugga Nooch. And I always thought that was like the best, like most professional actually of all the little shorts he made, like very much like a commercial. And I like very rarely saw it on MTV, despite having Matt Damon, like right when like Rounders and like all these big Matt Damon movies are happening, they like did not play that much. I mean, maybe they did on times I wasn't watching TV, but it's like if I was MTV and I had Matt Damon in the late 90s in my segment, I would like play that every day. Like, I don't know why they didn't. I don't know if Matt Damon said you can only air it once. I have no clue. Like, I'm not accusing him of anything. It's just, I always wonder why they didn't. They did play the one where Jay's like talking about like having sex with like every female singer, and it's like various puns on that. And they did actually air this. They did air certain spots a lot, others they didn't. Ones you just see randomly, like them imagining like a magical comic book store they owned and stuff like that. It's kind of interesting because it's a weird time for Jay and Silent Bob, because it's like before Dogma, and you just hear rumors about Dogma at that time. So at that time, all I heard about that was that Jay and Silent Bob would be dead in it, which is sort of not true. I enjoy this special because I have a lot of memories tied to it. I don't think it's like an amazing special, but it's sort of like a weird one where you can tell Kevin Smith is not into doing this special. But I will say, so many film kids at the time, and even on like message boards and stuff, were obsessed with this special because no one would travel out to the secret stash, and there was no like real internet except for a few pictures of it, and it looked so cool. Now it's not as cool because it's Kevin Smith. Any girl who's in frame, he's like, oh, you ever been with some famous guys, haha. But then they reject him, which I guess is ages well. But it's kind of just an interesting era for those two characters, because everyone knew they were kind of like kids like them, and they had this indie coolness, which seems totally bizarre. But like for real, like Jay and Silent Bob had art movie cred. It sounds like a joke. They really did. It was like they were on Indie Filmmaker magazine, all that stuff. And I'm sure that's why they wanted to use them. But they seem like such jokes. I like the black and white one they made, like Clerks. They did try to make them shoot them in different ways. It was probably more aesthetically pleasing than you really got from Kevin Smith at the time. But it's mainly just a weird little special and weird little era of MTV station IDs that Jay and Silent Bob were involved in. And the whole cult of Kevin Smith in the 90s was very much into. And a weird era of MTV, which as soon as Carson Daly sort of showed up, would immediately go away and never rear its head ever again. I mean, this is what MTV had a Best New Filmmaker at the MTV Movie Awards, so you can tell it was massively different at the time. But this kind of just reminds me of 1998 and, you know, turning on MTV and replaying this special for as many friends as humanly possible who wanted to see it. And thinking like these guys were so cool. Now I just think they're two guys who have literally no camera personality, showing off, you know, how they just probably got a big check to make some, you know, commercials for a cable channel. It kind of shows you, the beginning of the promise of Kevin Smith as a personality and how he could use that later on.